What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? This is Outside the Box, where every week I am joined by Fantasy Points CEO and master of dank stats, Scott Barrett. We're going to be going position by position, starting with quarterbacks, then running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. First, looking at the chalk, seeing if we like it, if we want to poke holes in it, and then finding some plays that we like at lower ownership for large field tournaments. Scott, seemed like you had a really good week last week. So somebody was commenting on my Sunday night stream that they thought you must have won a lot of money because a lot of your calls did very well last week. Were you able to profit off of your good calls last week?
Yeah, I'm on a bit of a heater, up a couple thou on the year. It could have been an insane week, but I fell too in love with my Galaxy Brain play of the week, which is something I do quite frequently. I had 50% Travis Etienne, and if that came down to just 25% Etienne, 25% Travion Henderson instead of 0, could have been a monster week. But alas, that's just kind of how the game goes. But excited to keep running hot.
I thought Kyle Williams was going to be a complete slate breaker. Still did well. He obviously had the 72-yard touchdown, but man, he could have really broken the slate at really low ownership if he just did a little bit more there. Instead, it was Matt Collins came through and ended up being.
We got to print the shirts, Neil. That's what we said. If Kyle Williams hits, we got to print. I'm envisioning on one side, it's like the meme with the guy who's like this with the Galaxy Brain.
Yep.
And it's like Scott's Galaxy Brain versus Neil's ass plays.
Neil ass plays. Yeah.
Like
it'd be fun. It's a good script. I mean, I don't know who's in charge of design at Fantasy Points, but you got to get that person on. Trey does it. Okay. Right now. Yeah, Trey, we need some shirts for Scott's Galaxy Brain plays versus Neil ass plays. Exactly. That'd be great.
And our listeners are divided into those two camps. I bet it's like perfectly 50-50 where they're like down to go to war with each other. It's like Neil ass plays are the best.
You don't think people are playing both? Yeah. I think you're probably right. It's probably split somewhat in who plays which plays. Hopefully there are some who are listening to both of us and weighing things and getting, it's probably right like some weeks.
25% just love both of us. 25% are just Arden Scott fans, 25% Arden Neil fans, and then 25% just hate the both of us. And they just hate watch every week.
Yeah, every week. Can't help themselves. Well, we'll start at quarterback as usual. And we have two over 10% projected ownership, both value quarterbacks. We have Jacoby Brissett versus beat up San Francisco defense. And then you've got JJ McCarthy against Chicago. We saw him put up like 20 fantasy points in one quarter against Chicago in his first NFL start. Maybe he can, extrapolate that and put up 80 fantasy points across 4 quarters today. Is that what we're expecting? How do you like both of these chalk quarterbacks today, Scott?
Yeah, I like them a lot. Jacoby Brissett, he is without Marvin Harrison Jr. appendectomy, but his price has not increased at all. When he's finished as a top 12 fantasy quarterback in all 4 weeks, he's averaging 22.9 DraftKings fantasy points per start. That would rank 3rd best on this week's slate, and he's still under 5K. He's hit at least 4x his salary every single start. They refuse to move him up. And this is one of the best defenses you could get. The 49ers, Robert Saleh is great. Dude, he's brilliant. Like, he should really be in the head coach consideration, but just the roster talent's really poor. This was a bad secondary heading into the year, and now they just cannot get pressure to save their life. So I like this. I like Jacoby Brissett. I think this is a new, different, better offense. This is what I said. Like, if I were an NFL GM, I would be scouting quarterbacks like a hot girl in New York City, where it's like 6'4" and up, nothing under that, can't do it. But you see the offense just totally different, where you have these under center dropbacks that Kyler Murray didn't have. You have Brissett targeting the middle of the field, which Kyler couldn't do because he couldn't see over the heads of his offensive linemen, and really good results. And so, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing. That's not great, but you do have this Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch potential value that's opened up. And Trey McBride, obviously a stud. Really, I think one of the best plays of the slate. That was one of the keys to my week last week. I just about locked in the Trey McBride JSN mini stack. And then there's JJ McCarthy. And I don't know how what percentage of our listeners like my sort of navel gazing versus just want to hear the names. But I think JJ McCarthy, I think you'll appreciate this as a Vikings fan. I think JJ McCarthy is actually like one of the most interesting talking points of the season. So if you like ask anyone, it's just like JJ McCarthy's a bust. He's awful. Worst quarterback in the league. He was soft benched. Now he needs to be hard benched. And like my whole game, what I've done throughout my whole career is just like make the devil's advocate argument as persuasively as possible. And if I sell myself on it, like buy into that, just because like you're wrong all the time. Like the majority opinion is just so frequently really wrong. And so a stat I had was if you look at JJ McCarthy and you just take out the second half after the high ankle sprain, the second half after he hurt his throwing hand, he had a positive CPOE, actually like a top 3 CPOE in every one of those halves except for one. And so that makes him look a little bit better. And I was just like, all right, I don't think I buy this. I think this is hopium, but like I think it's interesting. And then I talked to one of our top film charters, Zach Swales. And he was like, bro, JJ McCarthy's balling out. He looks great. Like the narrative is just dead wrong. I'm like, all right, that's really interesting. So I called up my guy, Brett Whitefield, best film expert I know, trained our charting staff, runs the charting staff at Fantasy Points Data. And he was like, bro, JJ McCarthy looks incredible. And like, this is blowing my mind. Like this feels like such a hot take. And not only that, he had another hot take that he beat me over the head with. He was like, Justin Jefferson looked like ass. And this is something you've heard a lot of people say is last week, worst tape he's ever put on film was awful, downright awful. Brett was saying he thinks Jordan Addison might be better, or at least like if you look at their tape this year versus, week 1 to now, Addison versus Jefferson, Addison has been the better player. And so, me, that's been a take I've had is that we're overrating Jefferson, underrating Addison. So I love that the tape backs this up. It's also Addison. I think most people would agree is maybe the better deep threat in terms of separation on these deep routes. And he has the Bears are just getting destroyed deep. Jalen Johnson's not going to be back this week. But anyway, all this to say, like, I think we're underrating JJ McCarthy as a talent. And so like even the people, like I think ETR is right there with us with our projection on JJ McCarthy and some of these other sites who are probably like, yeah, he stinks, but Kevin O'Connell's a genius. We saw Nick Mullins throw for over 400 yards in 2 of his 3 starts. We saw Josh Jobs get off a plane and just smash. We saw Carson Wentz before his shoulder fell off play really well. And so there is that. It's a top 4 matchup. The price is nice. And so, yeah, I think on DraftKings, these are really your cash quarterbacks of the week. And then also from a tournament perspective, if you go back and you look at the lineups that are shipping tournaments, it is cheap quarterback. Like DraftKings keeps lowering Lamar's price. I was heavy on Lamar last week. That was a mistake. Keeps lowering Josh Allen's price. But it's these cheap quarterbacks that are shipping because there's just more upside there, because there's more upside to the stack. And when it hits, quarterback scoring is generally fairly flat. So it just, and like all the players you want to pay up for this week, the big 3 wide receivers, the CMCs of the world, you can't get there without going cheap. And so, me, I'm always looking for a reason to get away from the chalkiest quarterbacks of the week. And I think it's tough. I think it's tough to get away from these quarterbacks. Although part of this might just be that I've embraced Sims and I'm having a ton of success since I started using Sims. And the one thing it's basically told me is like, I'm too contrarian for my own good sometimes. So inside the box, I like the upside, the price adjusted upside of a Brissett and a JJ McCarthy, even at this ownership. What do you think, Neil? That was a long rant.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm mostly with you. Like at these ownership numbers, I think I'll probably be with or above the field on both, which doesn't mean I'm going to have them in all my lineups. I tend to be more spread out at quarterback, but like I will be at least with the field, I think, on both JJ McCarthy and Jacoby Brissett for a lot of the reasons you gave. I'll respond to the JJ McCarthy positive stuff, which I absolutely love as a Vikings fan, also a JJ McCarthy believer. I
hell yeah.
Best ball. And I mostly agree with everything that you just said there. I don't think that Jordan Addison is better than Justin Jefferson. I think that is last game, Justin Jefferson, I agree, probably the worst game I've seen. Like I think he did really bad in that one game. I don't think the larger sample supports that argument that like overall I consider him the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's going to bounce back. But yeah, he looked terrible. He dropped one in the end zone, which it was a tough catch, but like usually Justin Jefferson makes that catch in the end zone. He had one that, part of what I liked about JJ McCarthy last week was he was just throwing it up to Justin Jefferson. Like there were times where it was like, all right, I don't know what else to do. I've got Justin Jefferson one-on-one. I'm just going to throw it there. And two of those turned into interceptions. One of them, Justin Jefferson tripped and it just, got intercepted because Justin Jefferson slipped and ended up just having the cornerback there by himself to make the interception. But I like the idea of just like, all right, I got nothing else to do. I'm just going to throw it to Justin Jefferson in coverage. That's going to work out more often than not. So people are like ripping on JJ McCarthy. For some reason, he is like the most polarizing player in the NFL. People just hate JJ McCarthy. The whole 9 thing has been mocked just endlessly since it came out. JJ McCarthy calling himself 9. At the end of the day, though, fantasy wise, he put up 17 fantasy points last week in what everybody, will tell you was like the worst NFL start for a quarterback. So he's a strong fantasy producer, even if he's not looking like a great NFL quarterback. And I think that just a little bit better luck than he had last week. And suddenly he's putting up 25 fantasy points if he just connects on a couple of those rather than throwing an interception. So I think that JJ McCarthy, a strong play here at 5,200. I wish that he was not chalky because with the narrative, you'd kind of expect him to be like 3% owned because everybody hates him, but people are getting a lot better than they once did. So I'm at least hopeful that JJ McCarthy might be good.
The one negative stat, because I have to do that, he's cleared 335 passing yards just once since high school. I think Bailey Zappi did that in like every single college start. And yeah, Brett had a bias. I had a bias, very high on JJ McCarthy coming out. I'm willing to change that, but this is just, this pays dividends in DFS is like these going counter to the prevailing narrative. When you have, an argument otherwise. And this is what, a lot of film guys are saying is like, JJ McCarthy played really well last week. It was Justin Jefferson was the one who was letting him down. It looked like he didn't gaff. It looked like it was an effort thing. And, but McCarthy was making sick plays, and you do see this in the numbers. I said he's the new Will Levis, aka the new Jameis Winston, drunk Jameis Winston on steroids, just because by hero throw rate or big time throw rate, McCarthy's leading the league, which just means like he's making the most wow throws, sick throws. He's also unfortunately leading the league in turnover worthy throw rate. So you get the good and the bad, but for DFS, where interceptions are only worth -1, touchdowns are worth 4 points, I think it's worth leaning into that volatility. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this little rant, and we can get back to just helping you win money in DFS.
Yeah, we just had to talk about JJ McCarthy for a while. I will say, like, I'm not even trying to make the argument that like he's been great and he looks like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's just small sample size, and people are just so quick to write him off quicker than most young quarterbacks. Anyway, we can keep moving on to some of the other plays here. Josh Allen to me does stand out. Like I kind of expected you to love Josh Allen, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts there because he's only projected for 8% ownership. I know you love Baker Mayfield on the other side. Is Baker Mayfield going to do what he needs to do for, Josh Allen to be in the type of game script where we love him? You bring it up all the time that he looks his best when he needs to put on his Superman cape. Do you think that he can get pushed by Baker and the Tampa Bay offense?
Yeah, believe it or not, I didn't write up Josh Allen this week. And this was a little contentious between our brain trust of Chris Wecht and Ryan Heath and Jake Tribby and Graham Barfield. I kind of just made the executive decision to we wrote him up and to not include him in the slate breakdown. And why? It's because of what I was talking about. Is just the price is really high. And if you're looking at what's shipping tournaments, and the ownership's up there too. What's shipping tournaments? It's really these cheaper quarterbacks with stackable upside. And like Josh Allen is typically not someone who has that stackable upside. Maybe it's Khalil Shakir, a guy who we've never seen a ceiling with, but no Dalton Kincaid. Maybe that benefits him. There's also I've been joking about it, but Drake May, my Exodia quarterback, like stole all of Josh Allen's superpowers. He hasn't played well. He played really poorly last week. I think it's because he doesn't have any receivers who can separate. And now he's without Dalton Kincaid, who is clearly the most efficient. His favorite best wide receiver ranks third in yards per route run. He's out this week. So, I mean, Ryan Heath and Jake might have said this was dumb by me, but I just think he's not good enough for cash. And then for tournaments, I would rather take my chances with some of these cheaper quarterbacks with more stackable upside. I did include Baker Mayfield, who is 600 less, only 3% owned. But he was all the way at the bottom of my list. For the argument for Josh Allen is when Buffalo needs him to be Superman, he typically delivers, and he delivers in a way that no other quarterback can match. They needed him to be Superman last week. He couldn't pull it off, but I could see that happening with Baker. It's just weird that he's at 3% when last week he didn't even have a great game, and Baker stacks shipped the millie. It was a triple stack with Otten, Tez, and Igbuka. That was another thing I was really close on. I either went just Igbuka or I went just Otten and Tez. Should have just played all three. But yeah, I mean, this just looks like a good spot for him. Baker's perpetually underrated. So again, last on my list, but a player who is a bit better than 3%.
I was just trying to find the weather, because people, Desiree brought up weather in Buffalo might be horrid, which I have heard. So I'm finding what Kevin Roth has said about the weather here. So the wind should be close to 20 miles per hour sustained, gusting around 35 miles per hour. Still a chance of some rain and snow showers, but I'm not too impressed with high res models are showing on radar. Expect we're mostly dry. Do we think the weather like matters for, like, what does the weather do for us with Josh Allen? Do you think you like him better or worse with bad weather?
Probably worse.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Baker obviously worse with bad weather.
Yeah. So likely snow showers, 17 mile per hour winds. Yeah, definitely monitor that. That wouldn't be great. I was hearing 30 mile an hour winds for Steelers Bengals, currently showing 20. But it was interesting, like that over under hasn't come down at all. You have Aaron Rodgers projected for, and the Steelers projected for 28.5 points when that has not been their every week expectation. So, but yeah, just keep monitoring it Sunday morning, see what it does to our projections. We'll always factor that into our projections, which, by the way, are best in the industry among the big five DFS sites. We have the best projections, the most accurate, the highest correlation to actual results. So shout out to Fantasy Points for that.
And by the way, if you have not already signed up for Fantasy Points, you can use promo code OTB15 to get 15% off already slashed in half prices at Fantasy Points. So cheaper than ever. Check it out if you haven't already done so. Highly recommend getting those projections, all the content behind the paywall, et cetera. Really good stuff at Fantasy Points. And by the way, if you haven't already liked and subscribed to this YouTube channel, they're putting out great content every day at Fantasy Points during the season, and I think almost every day during the off season as well. So make sure you are subscribed to the Fantasy Points YouTube channel as well. So we've talked about Brissett, McCarthy, Josh Allen, and Baker Mayfield. Does the weather concern you as far as Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers? I mean, Rodgers 5,400, Flacco 5,500, both projected for 6% ownership. Do you have a lean? Do you have a preference between those two? And do you think you'll be playing them, or is the weather going to scare you off?
Yeah, again, the brain trust, and I talked about it. I was more nervous about the weather than anyone else is. I also talked to a pro betting friend who's like, it's priced in. It's all priced in. Don't worry about it. But I do think it's something to monitor. Keep an eye on it Sunday. Just, I've done studies on this. Plenty of people have done studies on this. When wind gusts get over 18 miles an hour, that is when you see a noticeable drop off in production and efficiency for the pass catchers, and the running backs get a little boost. But I mean, you're talking about Joe Flacco, 5,500 at only 6%. Even if the weather is really bad, I think you're going to want to lean into the upside here. He's the overall QB1 since week 7. He averages 29 DraftKings fantasy points per game. That's 20% better than the next closest slate eligible quarterback. It's the best game environment of the slate. It is a top 5 matchup for him. Tons of stacking potential. So yeah, I think Joe Flacco is a great play. I do not think Aaron Rodgers is a great play. 100 cheaper. I would much rather take my chances with Joe Flacco, given the stackable upside, given the fact that unlike Rodgers, he has more than 225 passing yards in a game this season. So that is my lean on that.
Okay, I was just pulling up schedule adjusted.
250 passing. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have 250 passing yards in a single game this season. Crazy.
That is kind of crazy. Man, this is not showing up as good of a matchup as I thought it would be for Joe Flacco, unless I just missed him. Okay, yeah, it looks like he is.
Are you looking at last 5?
I am looking at last 5.
Okay, I was looking at all. If you look at all, he's
yeah, then it looks better
by passing too.
Oh yeah,
he's not gonna run at all.
Yeah, even better by passing. That's
so
good note. Yeah, Flacco looking like a strong play here. All right, so another game. So we've talked about some game environments, both sides of it. I think another one that might intrigue you is Matthew Stafford at 6,600, Sam Darnold at 5,700. I know you've been pretty bullish on Sam Darnold since the offseason. I think that was the very first best ball show you and I did together. You talked about loving the late round price on Sam Darnold, looking like it was way too cheap, and that has worked out pretty well. Do you like him this week against the Rams, and do you like Stafford on the other side?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Darnold is averaging 11.9 fantasy points per game in the first half of games this season, easily most among quarterbacks. And the issue is he's averaging like 1.3 fantasy points per game in the second half. But this is a rare game where we should expect Seattle to be pushed because they're 3-point underdogs against the Rams. We really haven't seen them trail for more than just a couple of plays since week 1, I believe. And then Matthew Stafford on the other side is just like seriously in the MVP consideration, absolutely balling out. He's scored 26.8 DraftKings fantasy points or more in 5 of his last 6 games. Josh Allen has done that only twice this year. He's averaging a full touchdown per game more than any other quarterback over that span. Amazing game environment. There's a little bit of a narrative that Sean McVay might be trying to get him to win MVP. Those are the vibes based on coach speak. Those are the vibes based on how aggressive they're letting him be, particularly near the end zone. Very, very greedy near the end zone, or a lot more so than in previous seasons, which you like to see. And if I could go on another sort of navel-gazy rant here that I don't know that everyone's going to appreciate, but I actually think this is one of the most interesting games of the week. And this could totally blow up in our face. This is one of my favorite to target leaning into the upside, but it can totally blow up in our face. This is the ultimate chess match. These are, 2 of the best play callers in the league. These are 2 of the most forward-thinking, innovative offenses in the league. The Rams did something interesting 4 weeks ago where they went from, first 6 weeks, whatever, 0%, 13 personnel. That's when you have 1 wide receiver, 3 tight ends on the field. And they jumped it up to 40%. And it worked. And it was doing really well. Next week, 60%. And it's been at about 60 to 65% every week since. This has hurt Puka Nacua because he has not been the wide receiver on the field in those looks. It's been Devontae Adams 50% of the time, Mumfield the other 50% of the time. And when you're a wide receiver in 13 personnel, that's great for you because you're very likely to get the ball because you're competing for targets against tight ends and not wide receivers. But this has been an efficiency hack that has worked really well for the Rams because defenses are matching it with base coverage because this is typically the personnel where you run the ball. Greg Olsen had a great rant on Bussing with the Boys talking about this. He's been talking about this for weeks where defenses should not be matching this with base personnel because Sean McVay is destroying them through the air. You have that mismatch. They're playing the run and they're passing. That's a clear advantage. You need to be matching with down and distance. And he's totally right. So why are defenses doing this? literally Greg Olson is saying, I'm saying, Max Toscano's saying, Brett Whitefield's saying, they're just dumb. It's just stupid. But this has been like a key reason why Stafford has been balling the F out is heavy 13 personnel, defense is matching with base. Sean McVay likely stole this from the Clint Kubiak Seahawks offense. What are they doing? They are going heavy, and teams are matching that, not with 13 personnel, typically with 22 or 12 personnel. And teams are matching that with base. And against base defense, Sam Darnold is averaging the best yards per attempt in NFL history. It is like 40% better than the all-time record, which was set by Kurt Warner back in the early 2000s. And it's just stupid. It just don't do this. Like play nickel and dime, even though they're lined up in 12 or 21 personnel. And so I'm talking about all this. The one defense that is not matching 13 personnel with base is the Seattle Seahawks defense. And like the one head coach who I think is smart enough to not match up against the Seahawks offense and base is Sean McVay. Why? Because he's the most forward-thinking head coach. Like the great play callers are innovative, the best steal. And he is like the king of all thieves. And he knows what to do. And so this hasn't happened against the Seahawks. And so what I think is going to happen if they're really smart is this is a rare game where Seahawks just run the crap out of the ball. And what do I think the Rams are going to do? I think they're going to try and do the same thing. I think they're going to run the crap out of the ball because both coaches are smart and they're going to play this the right way. But that being said, it's also still two of the best offenses in football, massive shootout potential. It's a boom or bust environment. I think this is fascinating. I think this is so interesting. I haven't read it yet, but Max Toscano just wrote a big article on this for Remember the Tight Ends that I'm sure is great. You guys can check out. And so it's just like, I can't wait to watch this game. And yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
That's fun. I mean, yeah.
What do you think? Synthesize all that.
Come on.
Are you playing it? What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think at these ownership numbers, it's playable. Like they're low enough owned that, yeah, I think we should be playing them. What do I think of your whole rant, Scott? That is not my forte, getting into the what are the coaches going to do type stuff. I mean, I'm fascinated to hear your opinion on it because you're going to be better than I am at trying to figure out what the coaches are going to do. I think you made a compelling case for honestly the running backs maybe looking better, but I think at this low of ownership numbers, hard not to have some interest in both Darnold and Stafford is my takeaway. It's like even if they're likelier to run the crap out of the ball, who knows? Like they could adjust differently than we're expecting. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out could it be that because the Seahawks defense is going to respond appropriately to the way to the three tight end sets that the Rams adjust back and just don't do it as much? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like they're going to stop doing the three tight end thing and maybe that would benefit Puka?
It's the key to Seattle's offense and Rams offense being too easily the best in the league is defenses playing them stupid. And I don't think these coaches are going to play them stupid. I think they're going to play them smart. And if they play them smart, the advantageous matchup is no longer via the pass. It then becomes via the run. And so I could see both teams running way more heavy than we've become accustomed and we're expecting. But even if that is the case, I still like both of these quarterbacks a lot.
Yeah. And I think that is generally my takeaway too, is like, yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of anti-quarterback stuff. But then at the end of the day, apparently the field is smart enough to adjust and not want to play them. And then they're just two quarterbacks that can ball out. This could just end up being they're throwing the whole game. So at 4%, I like both of them. I think my preference would be Darnold just because of the discount. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Just $900 cheaper. All right. So outside of that, we actually have a few like pretty good cheap options outside of the chalk. So we talked about Jacoby Brissett and JJ McCarthy being so cheap that they look great, but then we also have, I mean, Jameis Winston. It's a tough matchup, but he's 4,600. And he, do you think they're going to let him throw? Like, do you think it's going to be the same situation we had last year on the Browns, where it was just like, hey, let's just let JMO throw the ball? or Jameis Winston. What are you doing with Jameis Winston? Any interest there?
I think so. I think when you bench Russ, it's Kafka's first start. You see teams play up following a firing, and I could see Kafka, who like every year gets interviews and interviews really well, but doesn't get the job. I could see him sort of like in his bag trying to make a statement. But that being said, I mean, I think this is a good defense. I think this is a bad offense. I know Slayton. It's really just Wandale and a bunch of schlubs. So I love Winston. Like I'm an all-time Winston truther, and I actually excluded him from the slate breakdown. Ryan Heath kind of disagreed with me. It's like, I mean, if it's 4:00 and we see Jameis Winston have 390 yards and 3 touchdowns, would we really be shocked? No, I don't know. I always try and like pare down my pool to the best of its. He just missed the cut for me, and I feel okay about it. But Jake and Ryan were a little more convicted in him.
I saw somebody in chat brought up Michael Penix as a potentially interesting play. I don't love the matchup with Carolina. Maybe you can tell me if you feel differently. But then I'm almost interested, and I want to hear your thoughts on Davis Mills, who you just said last week that you think he might be better than CJ Stroud, and then he balled out. Now he gets Tennessee, one of the pretty strong matchup. Do you have any interest in either of Michael Penix or Davis Mills?
That's an insane take, saying that Davis Mills is better than CJ Stroud. This is insane. I don't know that I believe that. I was just
threw it out there.
But like that's a possibility that people maybe weren't accounting for. And what happened? Davis Mills has only attempted more than 15 passes twice since CJ Stroud got drafted, and he has the third or fourth best game by passing yards over the last 2 years, 2 of the 4 best games by sack rate over that span. I kind of don't love the matchup, but I mean, 4,500 is nice. It's an easy stack with Nico Collins. Didn't make my pool. Penix didn't make my pool either, but at this price point, leaning into upside for those guys and Jameis, I can't fault it at all.
Is the matchup worse than I think it is? I guess I was thinking of the Titans as being a strong matchup, but what do you not love about it? Looks like in terms of schedule adjusted, it's positive at least.
Yeah. I kind of Jeffrey Simmons is out, or questionable. He's questionable, but I just kind of worried about getting pushed, and you see teams with the backup quarterback wanting to be more conservative. I mean, at this price, I can't hate on it. I can't hate on him. I can't hate on Jameis. I'll just say, didn't make my write up.
Okay. I skipped past Justin Herbert. He is projected for 9% ownership at 6,300 in what I think should be a fairly strong matchup with Jacksonville. How much interest do you have in Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I really lost sleep this offseason trying to pick between my Exodia quarterback. That's like who my number one must draft quarterback is on the year. And just like, I've hit on that every year for like 7 years. So there's a lot of pressure riding on it. People are always excited about it. And so Herbert was my runner up. May was my pick, and he's, an MVP front runner. But I think if Herbert's offensive line stayed fully healthy, because it was, they lost their best offensive lineman in August. Joe Alt now is out for the year. Mekhi Becton's been in and out. If those 3 guys stayed healthy, I think Herbert's like easily leading MVP. But even without them, even with all these injuries, he's scored at least 26 DraftKings fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. This is, if you go back to schedule adjusted, last 5, this is the best possible matchup. It is also the number 1 pass funnel defense in the league. So obviously amazing spot. We always say he's a gift to the MME bros, to the sim bros, but I mean, this week, maybe just do a 3-entry max and have 3 different Herbert lineups. He's a really good play.
Yeah, he is tough to figure out who you want to pair him with, which we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get to receivers and tight ends later on. But it looks, I mean, just the matchup is great. The price is fine at 6,300. A lot to like there. Any other quarterbacks that you are wanting to talk about here?
Brock Purdy's okay.
Oh yeah, 5,800.
He's all right.
Mahomes,
not really.
Jordan Love. Do you think they throw the ball enough?
I think this offense kind of sucks without Tucker Kraft, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. On to running backs.
Let's do it.
All right. So running backs at the top, Jaylen Warren. It's been a cheat code all year. Just play the running back against the Bengals. The field is finally catching on. Jaylen Warren, 6,100, projected for 30% ownership. How much interest do you have in Jaylen Warren?
I mean, when has Jaylen Warren chalk ever worked out, Neil? Has it ever?
I don't know. Maybe not.
But when has opposing running back versus Bengals ever failed?
Exactly. So what do we do?
I mean, he's a great play, and this is something we've talked about. Is like when we're talking about the running back position, this show changes its name to Inside the Box because the running back chalk has been absolutely smashing. He has the highest implied point total of the slate, 27.25 points. This is the best possible matchup. He's also looked really good. He's top 5 in a number of key efficiency metrics. We have to be worried about Arthur Smith shenanigans. His route share really drops in trailing situations, but they're 5.5 point favorites. It's an amazing matchup. He's a great play. What I will say though, is he's 6,100 projected for 18.5 points. Chase Brown, same game, 19 fantasy points, and he's 400 cheaper. So that is like a great, I mean, they're both chalky to be fair, but we do prefer Chase Brown to Jaylen Warren straight up. But yeah, I guess they are both chalky.
Yeah, in terms of matchup, over the past 5 weeks, schedule adjusted, the best possible matchup for Jaylen Warren. It's not popping up as much. I was thinking that this is an equally good matchup for Cincinnati, but no, not looking like it's as good of a matchup for Chase Brown. But you get Samaje Perine, I think, likely out for Cincinnati. And I think the larger sample size. Let me look at schedule adjusted for the year. Maybe not. No, I'm wrong about that. So it's not even a great matchup on the full season against Pittsburgh, but pretty middling. Not like it's a terrible matchup either. So I guess is it just the lack of Samaje Perine makes Chase Brown pop?
Yeah, I mean it's a great game environment, and so maybe a lot of these Bengal points, fantasy points, go to Chase Brown, probably in addition to Jamar Chase instead of Jamar Chase,
right?
But yeah, it's so Perine is out, and their last game he had 30.4 XFP. That was the second most by any running back in any game this season. He had a 95% snap share. And so just basically the role went like completely back to what it was in the second half of last season, which I don't know if you remember, but it was basically like Christian McCaffrey levels. Like if you look at, the closest usage to Christian McCaffrey over the last 5 years, it's just all Christian McCaffrey seasons and Chase Brown. And so it's really hard to not be a successful fantasy running back with that sort of workload. And yeah, you saw him ship tournaments last year, even with, poor efficiency. It's just really good volume. He had 14 targets in his last game. So not really much more needed to be. And like that could have been, remember we talked about Joe Flacco playing with an injured shoulder and his ADOT coming down. So that could really be something that sticks.
Did you say Chase Brown had 14 targets in the last game? Or did I mishear you?
No, that is what I said. What did he have?
I just had not looked that up. That's 14 targets, 82% rep participation. That is insane. Remember this offseason when the coaches were saying he was going to be a household name by the end of the year, and that quote alone brought his ADP up in best ball like a full round. It was like everybody was like on the hype train for Chase Brown. But now
it's
it
one of
appears
those
like
things where it was like Chase Brown's going to smash. The coaching staff loves him, and then Joe Flacco gets hurt, and the offense stinks, and they're like, "Never mind, Chase Brown is dead."
right.
But now the offense is good again. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, they just need a competent quarterback. Get a Joe in there. So yeah, Chase Brown looks fairly strong. I see people in chat are not loving the Jalen Warren play. I'm into it. I think that's like the one thing that I've gotten consistently right this year, Scott, is just running backs against the Bengals. Just like there have been so many times when it's like, oh, Breece Hall, well the Jets stink. He doesn't get enough volume. Everybody like he wasn't chalky, and it was like this just seems like the best play. And then he smashed. It's just been every week the running back smash against the Bengals. So I'm going to keep doing it if people are going to be afraid. But 30% ownership. This doesn't seem like people are, not like everybody's afraid to play Jalen Warren against the Bengals. Then we've got after those top two, then we start to get into the expensive running back plays. And they're getting some ownership. Christian McCaffrey, 9,000 projected for 23% ownership with Brock Purdy back. Bijan Robinson, 8,300, 17%, and Josh Jacobs at 7,800, 16%. I really like two of these three, and then the third I'm not a huge fan of. I want to hear if your thoughts are the same on the three pay up running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all pretty good, and I think they're all pretty similar, to be honest. Christian McCaffrey, it's just the same thing we've said all year. It's the best workload in fantasy points data history by a significant margin. I think something people are missing. I'm actually probably higher on CMC than our projections are, than Chris Wecht is. The Cardinals are down 3 starting linebackers: Baron Browning, Mac Wilson, Will Johnson. Their other 2 starting defensive linemen, Darius Robinson, Walter Nolan, are both questionable. By the way, CMC historically murders Arizona. I think he has like multiple 40 burgers against them. So yeah, I like Christian McCaffrey a lot. He feels very safe. The only issue is JSN's awesome. Jamar Chase is awesome. So, when you get up to that price point, it gets a little more difficult.
So Bijan is the one that I am, and it's probably just I played him so much the last time they played Carolina, and like it turns out Carolina's a better run defense than we gave him credit for. And people Debro says Bijan bounce back game. People predicting that maybe the opposite happens here, whereas just the Falcons, after getting shut out by Carolina in their last game of this matchup, maybe come in with this game circled and want to put up a big score here. So Bijan, 8,300. He's projected for 17% ownership. He's the one that I was not as into of this trio, but maybe I'm wrong to not like Bijan in this matchup. What level of interest do you have there?
No, I think you're right. What was the stat I had in the everything report? Well, in week 10, Tyler Algier had 3 carries inside the 10-yard line. Bijan had 0. Over their last 4 games, he's out carried 5-1. There are 40 running backs with more inside the 10-yard line carries than Bijan this year. And that's a killer. That really hurts your floor, really hurts your ceiling, your tournament winning ceiling. And so that's something, you have to be cognizant of. The one thing I'll say is this was something, I talked about with Achan last week, where I lowered my exposure to him because of it. And he still, went nuclear. He did lose those, inside the 5, inside the 10 carries to Jalen Wright after losing it to Ali Gordon, but he's still smashed. And, with Bijan, even if this is the case, he has multiple games where he had a game with 170 rushing yards. He has multiple games with over 100 receiving yards, and he can still get there. But I don't disagree that personally, to me, he's my least favorite of the 3.
Yeah, it's tougher to see him getting there. It is. Debro noted that Carolina's run defense has fallen off, and that is supported by schedule adjusted over the past 5. It's actually the 6th best matchup for running backs over the past 5 weeks, which I had not noticed that trend because they were looking so good early on in the year, but they have kind of come back down to earth, so maybe not quite as bad. But yeah, it seems like you kind of need Bijan to be breaking off those long runs to get there, which he's obviously capable of doing so. So then it just becomes like an ownership game. And to me, 17% isn't really enticing to me for Bijan, just given all of the pretty strong plays that are 2,000, 3,000 cheaper than he is. But have to recognize that he is one of the likeliest running backs on the slate to hit 30 fantasy points plus. Josh Jacobs, nice matchup here with the Giants. He is 7,800. You said that you think the Green Bay offense stinks without Tucker Kraft potentially, but are they just going to give Josh Jacobs 26 touches again this week?
They definitely could. It's like the perfect game script for it, and he's really one of the most game script sensitive players in fantasy. They're 7-point favorites. It's a top 3 schedule adjusted matchup. The Giants defense is awful. Since joining the Packers, he averages 19.5 DraftKings fantasy points per game and wins over 28% and like 20% of those, much lower in losses. So yeah, it just looks like a really good spot. Kayvon Thibodeau is out, and their linebacker Bobby Okereke is questionable. So yeah, it looks good. I do think, losing Tucker, we'll see, but this is something Max Toscano talked about before Tucker Kraft ever suffered the injury. And then obviously it's looked pretty rough since then. Is like, he's really the linchpin to that offense, and losing them hurts them in a significant way in both the running game and the passing game.
Yeah, that does make sense. Losing just a gam like Tucker Kraft hurts the whole offense.
What's a gam?
Grown ass man.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So outside the top 5, Rico Dowdle is 6,800. Also a nice matchup here with Atlanta, the second best matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game over the past 5 weeks. Strong in both the rush and receiving. So Dowdle looks like a fairly strong play at 15% projected ownership. And then RJ Harvey, we just got the news during the show, Scott, that it looks like J.K. Dobbins is likely out for the season, going on IR. Do we think that is Sean Payton actually going to give the work to RJ Harvey that we're expecting him to, or is it going to be Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bidet? So let's start with those two. Dowdle, Harvey, what's your level of interest?
Let me go back to CMC for a second, just because I pulled it up. Last 3 games against the Cardinals, 24. Wait, hold on. Yeah, okay. 24 DraftKings fantasy points, 44.7 DraftKings fantasy points, 51.7 DraftKings fantasy points. Yeah, let's start with Rico Dowdle. Yeah, easily one of my favorite plays of the entire slate. He had like 200 yards from scrimmage, and then 200 yards from scrimmage, and then 200 yards from scrimmage. And then he was just fine last week, although the volume was great. And now no one wants to play him in what looks like a sneaky great matchup. So yeah, he had an 80% snap share, 80% of the carries, 12% target share last week. Yeah, he's awesome. One of my favorite plays, elite play. And then Harvey, I kind of don't know. This was an Exodia, him and Travion Henderson, which looked freaking awful for the first. By the way, someone asked what Exodia is. It's a really nerdy Yu-Gi-Oh reference where like you just need these 5 cards and then you automatically win. And it's like that. You just need these 5 must draft players. These guys I wrote up in my draft guide. And if you get all 5 on your team, you just automatically win, and you can just log out the rest of your draft. Who was I talking? Yeah, Harvey. So it's been awful. You had earlier in the week the Denver beats saying they think it's going to be the Harvey show, and then you had Ben Albright yesterday. He's a pretty weird guy, but pretty clued in, pretty locked in, saying he thinks like he does get an expanded workload, but still strongly splitting early down work. And so I need to talk to some of the Denver beats. I'm going to DM some of the Denver beats after this show and kind of collect my thoughts on that. He's a really, really good value on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I'm still kind of figuring him out, to be honest. I like him more than Aaron Jones. I'll say that for upside.
Okay, so you're not a fan of Aaron Jones at 5,500. So he's.
I mean, I
100
like
more
Aaron
expensive.
Jones. If I had to pick between them, they're the same price.
Yeah. Okay. And you've got ETN there at 5,600. So this is why it's like it's tougher for me to want to pay up for someone like Bijan when it's just like seems like ETN could get there at 5,600. Kamani Vidal 5,900. Woody Marks against Tennessee. Just so many of these running backs in the 5,000 to 6,000 range that look really strong to me. What's your level of interest in ETN, Vidal, Marks? Like who's your favorite? How would you rank them? And I guess you include Jones in that as well.
Yeah, you brought up Aaron Jones last week, and I poo-pooed it, and it was just bad process by me. I kind of forgot he like ripped off that gigantic run and then got pulled early or whatever. And so yeah, his workload's actually been pretty good. Week 10, 72% snap share, 64% carry share, 64% route share, 12% target share or better in all of his fully healthy games, top 5 matchup. He's solid. I don't really like these committee backs, but he's okay. Etienne and Vidal, I did not write up. For Vidal, it's just the Jaguars are the biggest pass funnel defense in football. And then with Etienne, he's very game script sensitive, and this doesn't look like a game where Jacksonville is going to be leading. Woody Marks is another fringe guy. Him and Aaron Jones just kind of, yeah, they're in play. But he had a expanded workload, 78% snap share, 74% carry share. Got all the work inside the 10-yard line, which was surprising. And good game script and Tennessee's run defense. You can kind of go either way on it. If Jeffrey Simmons, who's questionable, is out, I'm going to say this is a very good matchup. So just keep an eye on that.
Okay. And then back up in price a little bit. James Cook against Tampa Bay. We just saw Trevion have the big game against this Tampa Bay defense. And now we get Cook is 7,300, has the same kind of breakaway speed that Trevion has that seems to work well against this Tampa defense. I know that you're not the biggest Vita Vea believer to begin with. So anyway, how much interest do you have in James Cook here?
Yeah, I think he's an amazing play. I think anytime James Cook is under 12% owned, you have to come in well over the field. And yeah, I mean, you look at his workload and like, I'm an XFP guy. I like really popularized that stat a number of years ago. And you look at it and it's awful. He has like 2 receptions since September. But the dude just finds a way. The dude just rips off 60-yard runs. And so, yeah, I think he's a great tournament play. Anytime he's made me a lot of money over the years with just anytime the Bills are favored and he's under 12% owned, you got to play him.
What is going on with the Arizona running backs? Because I see Michael Carter projected for 3% ownership, and we have a 1.9 projection on Michael Carter. Emari Demercado, 10.1 projection. So seems like the industry is all over the place in terms of how to project the Cardinals backfield. Do you think you have a strong read on this? Do you have any kind of like big lean on Demercado versus Michael Carter here?
Oh, Neil, we are in rare territory. We are in Galaxy Brain Play of the Week territory.
Ooh, okay.
Note to the watch viewers, if this hits and makes you several $100s, you have to buy the Galaxy Brain Neil Ass Play shirts when they come out. Yeah, I like Emari Demercado at 1%. Bam Knight is hurt. He's questionable. Demercado leads the league in yards per carry with 9. He's hit 78 yards from scrimmage in 3 of his last 4 games. He's not anywhere near as good of a play as all that seems, but if we're talking about 1% ownership at 4,500, I kind of like that.
Yeah, so it seems like a strong 1% play. Yeah, it's one that I do the some best ball, or not best ball. I do some drafts on underdog early in the week, and he really popped. Like it was like Imar DiMercado in the fantasy points projections, like looks really good, and nobody's drafted him. So I've drafted a ton. So I'm already in on DiMercado just based on those drafts. So hopefully that works out with DiMercado. Um, who else? I mean, I see Todd brought up Keaton Mitchell as a Neil Ass play. Derrick Henry, do you like either of these Baltimore backs? Derrick Henry is 6,600 projected for 7% ownership. We have no Justice Hill, so it could be Keaton Mitchell getting a bigger workload at 4,000. Any interest in either?
Not really, not for me. I could see it. I mean, Henry has really good upside, but I'd rather just play James Cook. It's kind of like the same play to me.
Yeah. No Isaiah Pacheco again this week. Kareem Hunt projected for 2% ownership at 5,200 against Denver. And the other play that, like, if we really want a galaxy brain, do you think there's any chance that we see Brashard Smith get that post by rookie bump with Pacheco out? Because he really wasn't involved at all in week 9.
I just don't really see much upside to either guy, to be honest.
Okay. I think that seems like a reasonable take. Any other running backs that are popping to you?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we kind of keep it straightforward, and I think that's worked out well for us.
Okay. I just one more that I need to ask you about, because you brought up the possibility that Seattle and the Rams, they just run it the whole game. Does that make you interested in Kyren, Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, any of them popping for you?
Kyren probably makes the most sense, but like he's not a value at that price point.
Yeah, it is tough. Okay.
I hate Charbonnet so much. So much, Neil.
I know. And I drafted so much Kenneth Walker because every sharp fantasy football person I know was like, what? Why is he going in the 5th round? He should be a 3rd round value. And so I drafted so much Kenneth Walker, and that has not worked out.
There was a
for some reason.
Kubiak quote where he was asked about like how they divvy up the touches, and he said something like, there are some things that matter more than just success with running the red. Like, what? Who's
right? Yeah.
So yeah, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, that's a tough one. All right, we'll move on to wide receivers, where the ownership at the top, we've got, I mean, three of the top 4 at wide receiver in terms of ownership are I believe the 3 most expensive wide receivers on the slate. Jamar Chase is the chalkiest at 8,500. We've got Puka Nacua is 8,700 projected for 17% ownership, and then JSN 8,900 projected for 16% ownership. Chase, by the way, 26% at 8,500. So starting with the big 3 at the top, any fades for you? Do you like all 3 of them? How are you playing the spend up wide receivers?
I mean, do I really need to say much about Chase and JSN?
Not really.
Okay. So they're awesome. The one thing I'll say about Puka is, that route share has come down considerably, and that is a function of their 13 personnel, which has been consistently, 60% over the last 4 weeks. Maybe they mix that up, but it's been a consistent, 3 or 4 weeks now of them doing that. And so you look and you see Puka off the field in those. Yeah, he was weeks 4 and 5, 85 to 90% route share. The last 2 weeks, 62% in both weeks. And so it's just like when you're talking about, these guys who are all awesome and within, $200 to $400 of each other. I would prefer Chase and JSN, especially when the ownership is this tight.
Yep, I think that is a good breakdown of the top there.
I think Adams is a little sneaky.
Ooh, okay.
He's just not a good value, right?
Yeah, he's pay up to be contrarian, which I loved it a few weeks ago, and it hasn't really hit, I don't think, but continues to be
it comes really close to hitting every single week. But but it hasn't.
Yeah, one of these weeks, Devonta Adams gonna hit.
Just like Darius Slayton.
Yeah, and he's out now. Finally, you get Jameis in there, Darius Slayton out. Michael Wilson, 3,800 with no Marvin Harrison Jr. pops in terms of value, getting 18% ownership against San Francisco's beat up defense. How much interest do you have in Michael Wilson, or are there any other Arizona wide receivers that you like?
Well, where is Greg Dortch? What's his ownership?
Much lower, down at 6%.
All right. Well, now sort by fantasy point per dollar. Let's see where Chris has him. All right. Michael Wilson still ahead.
Dortch number 6 though.
Yeah. So I hate Michael Wilson. I don't want to play Michael Wilson. I am a Dortch guy. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I'm a Dortch guy. If I was on Tinder, it would in my bio say I'm a Dortch guy. The Dortch God. I don't know if you guys know you just got dorched. But Michael Wilson throughout his career has 37 games with a snap share over 66%. In those 37 games, or actually every game of his career, he's only cleared 15.5 fantasy points once. Greg Dortch, only 15 career games over a 66% snap share. He's cleared 15.5 fantasy points 4 times. This is a player who's actually made me money. I don't know if you remember when Rondale Moore was on the team. I'm like, Greg Dortch is better than this guy. Greg Dortch is a better slot receiver than this guy. And Rondale missed time. And Greg Dortch, whenever he had a 66% snap share or better, he would be productive. And he made us a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but came through for us in the clutch. Unfortunately, it's like his role is not really going to change. He's still going to be the slot guy. His route share is going to go up from like 30%, whatever it was, to 65%. He hasn't really done anything with that 30% route share. So I don't know. I want to plant my flag and say it's Dortch because at least he's had more than one good game in his entire career. But I don't know. They both kind of suck, honestly. I mean, it's just like there's no one else. But they're both, I don't know. It's hard to get a good read on it.
Yeah, like they're going to have to throw the ball somewhere. But that, I mean, it could just be like Trey McBride and Amari DiMercado. And then his wheels up if it's just those two. We would take that all day. Steven says Michael Wilson has a small problem of not being very good. That does seem like it is a bit of a problem. You never know. Maybe Dortch plays a bit more here. Maybe
he also, like, if you look at, can you pull up the coverage matrix?
Yeah.
He also, like, throughout his career, like 92% of his yards have come against zone. Like, he cannot beat man coverage to save his life. No. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Oh, but he's Michael not showing Wilson. Up here.
All right. So it's a neutral matchup. No, that's fine. Yeah. So it's a neutral matchup. Would have been a great matchup for Marv, but, yeah. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, projected volume. I think on my own lineups, I'll lean Dortch, but I get why Chris has Michael Wilson higher.
Yeah.
How's he done with Jacoby? I think he had a season high targets last week at the very least. Yeah, he had 7 targets. That honestly might be tied for his career high. Had 61 yards 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys. I don't know. He sucks. I think he kind of sucks. But yeah.
Well, wasn't that true of Marvin Harrison until like a few weeks ago, that he had never been targeted more than 7 times in a game? Hey. I'm pretty sure like the NFL account or something like that tweeted it out like, hey, he just matched his season high with 7 targets in a game, which seems insane for Marvin Harrison.
He's hit 10 or more 3 times, but
okay.
He was 6 or less all the other games, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Maybe it was receptions instead of targets. I don't know. But
yeah, that's probably right.
Egbuka is 7,200. I know you're a big Baker fan. We play in some Egbuka or Tez Johnson, or what are we doing with the Tampa receivers?
Yeah, what I like to do is kind of make like the best bull case argument I could make, and the bull case argument for Egbuka is like awesome. So remember last year, Chris Godwin ranked behind only Jamar Chase in fantasy points per game. He goes down, and the games without him, Mike Evans ranked behind only Jamar Chase in fantasy points per game. When they were both out, Cade Otton, who never did anything throughout the rest of his career, put up fantasy points per game that was equivalent to ranking second behind only Jamar Chase. This year, Igbuka's averaging 11.3 targets over his last 3 full games. And in full games, he was not on the injury report. He averages 22.5 DraftKings fantasy points per game, which would rank 3rd best at the position. And so something I think a lot of people are missing is that Buffalo's a sneaky good matchup. They were always ranked like top 5 against wide receiver ones in the Sean McDermott era. But this year they're giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to wide receiver ones. So where do these show here? Do they just show neutral?
Yeah, pretty neutral in terms of schedule adjusted.
Okay, yeah, but against wide receiver ones in particular, which could just be variance or something, they're giving up the 3rd most, 20.4 fantasy points per game.
Did you see Sam Laporta went on IR? I think
that's a bummer.
Kind of,
I have him in some tight end premium leagues. Yeah, that's good for Jameson. That's good for St. Brown. That's good for Gibbs.
Yeah. Yep. Good for the
if
others.
The Lions were on this slate, I'd probably just go all in on that because I'm a big Dan Campbell guy.
Yeah. Drake London 7,400 again against Carolina. He's hurt and sick, so it's kind of unclear if Drake London is actually going to be playing. Do you have any thoughts there if he gets 15% ownership?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case that he's, Igbuka and London are really basically like Puka, but $1,000 cheaper or $1,500 cheaper, whatever it is. London's been insane. He's hit double-digit targets in 4 of his last 5 games. He scored at least 27 DraftKings fantasy points in 4 of his last 5. Leads all wide receivers in fantasy points per game over that span. 2nd in targets per game. Carolina's been getting destroyed by wide receiver ones. I don't. You could pull it up and schedule adjusted. I think it looks like a tough matchup, but they're getting destroyed by wide receiver ones. So yeah, a lot comes down to that back injury, the illness he's dealing with. But outside of that, he looks like an awesome play. And I know we were very critical of Drake London earlier in the year, but
don't say we. Don't include me. Come on. That's all you.
But Darnell Mooney has a broken collarbone, a bad hamstring. He's one of the worst separators in the league this year. He's clearly playing through an injury, and the team is now finally feeding him like the wide receiver one he deserves to be. So yeah, you can make an argument that London and Igbuka should be right there with the JSNs of the world, but they're not really priced like it.
Brad Moore points out that Scott is wearing his Wandale hat on Wandale week. Scott, is that true? Are you wearing the hat for Wandale? I've been playing him every week. He's been in slot funnel matchups, but now I don't know what the matchup looks like as far as slot funnel. Yeah.
Let's see.
Does not pop as a
matchup. Oh, it's a bad one.
Let's
matchup. Go, baby.
So does that mean that we can play him now? Because he's been pretty bad in great matchups. But now the real thing is now he gets Jameis Winston, who will throw the ball if they let him. He'll sling it. Do we have any interest in Wandale?
So I hate Wandale. I've said this before. I've said this many times before. I would rather lose $1 million than win $1 million with Wandale Robinson in my lineup. So I'm not going to play a chalky Wandale Robinson, but the thing is, you absolutely can. Like, this is me, my own personal biases. You can play Wandale Robinson because this isn't the same Wandale Robinson I shit all over, said he has no ceiling, I've hated for years. This is an insane Jake Tribby stat. Robinson has 11 deep targets this year. That's as many as AJ Brown. That's more than Cortland Sutton. There's no Darius Slayton this week. It's Jameis Winston, who just is fantasy gold for his wide receiver ones and wide receiver twos. So, yeah, I hate to say it. He's if you click on projections, he's going to be way up there. So I won't fault anyone for playing him. I'll probably exclude just mostly for the brand, but yeah, I can't really hate on it.
4th in terms of fantasy points per dollar. So yeah, definitely pops from a fantasy point per dollar perspective. Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I suspect I'm not going to play a ton this week, and then I'm going to feel really stupid because it's a tough matchup. But obviously JMO just could really bring him up quite a bit. Um, all right, and then we have Rashee Rice is 7,900. I know you weren't that interested in Mahomes. Justin Jefferson, we talked about playing some JJ McCarthy. So then maybe we play Justin Jefferson in those stacks at 7,500. And then of course I know you like Jordan Addison. So let's talk about the Vikings receivers, and then if you have any interest, do you have any interest in Rashee Rice?
So I don't think I do. Rice
Okay.
is a pretty good value on FanDuel, certainly not on DraftKings. Even without Patrick Surtain, this is a tough matchup. This is something Brett was saying all last week where he was like, guys, Bowers is a fade. Bowers is a fade. We're like, why? He just had 27 catches last week. And it's because Denver, they do the Bill Belichick thing where they sell out to stop the opposing team's top option so you saw that bracket coverage against Bowers. I don't know that works against a Rashee Rice, just because like you look at his usage, it's sort of like a running back. It's sort of like Christian McCaffrey through the air, where he has this like pathetic 1.3 A dot, and he really is an extension of the passing game. I just think balancing, and so like I don't know the answer to that, but because like maybe he is scheme proof. But I think just weighing the pros and cons, the ceiling, there are for sure wide receivers I like more, and those are the wide receivers that we talked about.
Okay.
And then Jefferson, yeah, I don't know what's up with him. Like I said, multiple people told me they thought it was an effort thing. Like he looked checked out. He looked like he didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
We know he's a lot better than that, and so maybe he has something to prove. It was good to see JJ McCarthy stick with him, and he's like, hey, Rook, or he's not a rookie, but hey, I let you down. You could trust me this week. Maybe he balls out. But I like Addison. That's been one of my leans all year. He comes in under 5% owned every week, much cheaper than Jefferson. Like I said, it's a good matchup. He's a really good deep threat. He gets really good separation on these vertical routes. And this is a top 5 matchup deep. Like if you went into advanced receiving, no, if you went to fantasy points allowed tool, have we showed off this tool, Neil? No, not receiving. Go to fantasy. You go to fantasy points allowed. Let me make sure this is right. And so click on position wide receiver, and then go to the filter, and then play, and then scroll down to depth of target, and then click 20 plus, and Chicago should be, oh yeah, Chicago's second. So if you scroll to the right or zoom out or get rid of the filters to the left.
Oh, yep.
Just to show that, yeah, there you go. So they're giving up 11 fantasy points per game to wide receivers on deep passes. And so that's pretty good for, I mean, they're both great deep threats. And like I said, JJ McCarthy leading the league in hero throw rate, which is pretty crazy to me. But yeah, I really like that from Addison, who's averaging 1.5 deep targets per game this year. And is getting really good separation on those looks, perhaps in part because of how teams are playing Jefferson. But yeah. Just under 5%. I actually didn't write him up, but I probably should have.
While we're here on
no
Addison,
Jalen Johnson, by the way, that was recent news.
Pretty nice. Sort of similar play. T Higgins is projected for 5% ownership at 6,000. I've been kind of thinking maybe he's an intriguing play here. Any interest in T Higgins this week?
Yeah. So I've talked to like 5 different people and asked them how they think Pittsburgh without Darius Slay plays the Bengals receivers this week. And I think the consensus is more or less they just stick to their sides. I think one person thought they bracket chase and have JPJ shadow Higgins. They had JPJ shadow Higgins last year, and it was like one of the most insane things I've ever seen. I think JPJ is one of the better shadow cornerbacks, not really someone to truly fear, but one of the better cornerbacks in the league. And JPJ was having a lights out season, but against T Higgins, he picked up the most DPIs of any cornerback in like 6 years, where like if you count DPI yards as real yards, Higgins had something like a theoretical like 10 catches, 181 yards. And it was like so insane that the reporters asked Mike Tomlin about it after the game. And he was like, when we play Shaq, we're going to use our fouls. And it's like the respect they put on T. Higgins' name was crazy to me. But yeah, he's a great play at 5%. Like he shouldn't be 5%. It's also a really good schematic. Steelers live in single high, which T. Higgins destroys single high, which is maybe why they put so much respect on his name, so much more respect than most other defenses. So it is a really good schematic matchup for T. Higgins plus 12%, 13%. And just to remind you guys, this is something we do better than anyone else. A lot of these other sites aren't factoring in schematic matchups into their projections. That's why we have the best projections in the industry. I was talking to a professional bettor who's like part of this, major syndicate or whatever. And he was saying he thinks his biggest edge this year is ladders on receivers based on schematic matchups. And I've had a lot of really good success with that as well. And so, yeah, so something like this, I think is really significant. So I like the upside for T. Higgins at only 5%. I think he's a good low owned play.
Nice. Okay. And a reminder, if you want to check out the data suite, you can get 15% off using promo code OTB15. What else? I mean, do you have a lean on the Chargers receivers? You got Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey. QJ is questionable, so I'll say that. We talked about liking Justin Herbert. Great matchup for Herbert. Then you've got Ladd McConkey. Maybe if QJ is out, Keenan Allen starts running more routes again. Do you have a lean on these Chargers receivers?
Yeah. How much are they?
So we've got QJ is just 5,000 projected for 11% ownership. Ladd is 6,500 projected for 7% ownership. And then Keenan Allen is 5,300 projected for 3% ownership.
I think it's Gadsden's my favorite Chargers wide receiver. Like unironically, no joke. Because he's 4,600. Dude is incredible. Dude is balling out. Before he got knocked out of that game, he posted the best separation win rate on the week. He was tied for the team high in target share. I think in the first half, I think he's tied for the team high in target share in like 3 straight games, something like that. He looks awesome. And then it's probably Ladd, because Jordan Lewis is out. That's the Jaguars slot cornerback. And McConkey's also just been the most productive of the group. Quentin Johnston's questionable. He's dealing with a shin injury. I think he plays, but he's questionable. And then Keenan, since the Gadsden breakout, his route shares dropped from like 78%. Let's see what it is. Yeah, so down to like 50 to 60. And remember, Gadsden got knocked out in the second half.
That's
so
right.
The route shares really come down for him. So he's my least favorite. But again, this is just like a tricky situation where, the Sims can help you out. MME bros have a little bit of a luxury. So I like Ladd more than our projections do, but I ultimately didn't write up any of these guys for my more narrow pool in the slate breakdown.
Okay. What else? San Francisco, we get Purdy back. Are we in on Jawan Jennings? He's projected for 12% ownership at 5,100. Ricky Pearsall, it sounds like, is also going to be back. I don't know if you have interest in Pearsall at 5,400, 1% ownership. Any interest in the receivers on San Fran?
Yeah, I like Pearsall a lot. I like him more than Jawan, certainly at ownership. There's a chance he's the healthiest of the 3 receivers. I don't know if you remember, I was saying I thought Kittle and Juwan were hurt because they told us they were hurt, but also because their separation scores were terrible. But they had their best separation score since they got hurt last week. They also put up a bunch of points. I don't know what that is. That might have just been a lot of garbage time against prevent defense and good volume. Maybe they're just, healthier. But, my sources in San Francisco, the beat writers are saying Pearsall looks incredible. They played it really safe with him. He was averaging like 17 fantasy points per game before he got hurt. No one's playing him. This is a guy I liked. This was an Exodia, so I like Pearsall this week.
All right. What else? What else do we like here? We've already talked about
Nico coming off of a 15 target game.
That's right. We talked about Davis Mills. We did not talk about Nico Collins, 6,700 projected for 8% ownership.
Yeah, this was another weird stat I had where against the Jaguars, he had this 150-yard touchdown catch where our charters debated whether to grade it as busted coverage or a +3 ass play, which is like the highest separation score you can get. And so if you just took out that one catch, then Nico hadn't gone over 78 receiving yards in any of his last 11 games with CJ Stroud. But last week with Davis Mills, 15 targets, 136 receiving yards. That was his most since week 4 of last year. 33% target share. So, I think he's a really strong tournament play.
Yeah, looks like a really strong tournament play. We do get Dalton Schultz is going to play, which, maybe would have been better, I think, with Dalton Schultz out for the game, but still, obviously, Nico, just an alpha there. People have been bringing up the fact that Rashad Bateman is out, maybe brings DeAndre Hopkins into play, but also, I don't know if you think that benefits Zay Flowers at all. Do you have interest in any of the receivers on Baltimore?
No, not really.
Okay. That's quick and simple, just tough matchup.
What is Lamar at? He's probably a good contrarian play.
I mean, he's not going to. He's not projected for any kind of ownership. Let's see.
Because what was Lamar plus Zay last week? I was jumping up and down on the table for that.
4% projected ownership.
I'll give that one more thought.
Yeah. All right, back to wide receivers. Who else?
You want to sort by fantasy point per dollar?
Yep. Khalil Shakir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have exposure just because this is the top value and no other site really has it that way. And, hashtag trust Chris. Chris has been killing it. But it's also like a guy who's like never really shown us a ceiling. I do think he benefits from Kincaid being out, but it's kind of like the Wandale thing where I just hate these low ADOT, low ceiling slot receivers. 28% target share in the 4 games without Dalton Kincaid. Like that's like top 12 among all wide receivers. And if I told you could get a Josh Allen's wide receiver 1 with a 28% target share, you'd be all over it. But, Shakir has just never shown us a ceiling. It is a great schematic for him against the blitz, Buccaneers blitz, really top 5 rate. And that's really been Josh Allen's guy when blitzed. But I don't know. He just feels like on the Wandale spectrum to me.
Romeo Doubs is 10th in terms of fantasy points per dollar. He is 5,000 projected for 7% ownership. But then you also have Christian Watson. I'm curious. He's 30th here, 4,400. If we look at the fantasy points allowed on passes of 20 yards or longer, the Giants are the 7th best matchup for receivers. Any interest in either of Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson or any other Green Bay receiver?
Yeah, it's definitely Watson, who I like a lot. That would probably be my Galaxy Brain wide receiver play of the week. This is just a player I've always liked and a player I've always thought was underrated. I think he's the best receiver on the team. I think he's the best fantasy wide receiver on the team. He's averaging 63 yards per game this year, despite, not really seeing a full-time workload until last week, an 81% route share. He crushes man coverage, which the Giants play at a league high rate. So it just looks like a great spot for him. And, at this price tag, just one big play could really set you up nicely, like Kyle Williams did for us last week.
Yep. Love that call. I'm noticing that we have both of two Jacksonville receivers looking like fairly strong point per dollar plays. Actually, Parker Washington is not jumping here. He's 17th, and then we have Jacoby Myers is 32nd. So not really popping, but like strong enough values. Do you have any interest in either of Jacoby Myers or Parker Washington?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other receivers that you want to point out here?
Not really. There's
All
one
right.
more guy in the sleep breakdown. You can find it, but
Okay.
not someone I'm gonna have a ton of exposure to.
Okay. Tight ends. This is a Trey McBride separating from the field type week. He is 6,300. Look at that projection. Just at the fantasy point difference, 6-point spread between McBride and the next best tight end. However, he is getting 28% ownership. What's your level of interest in Trey McBride?
Massive. Probably the best play in the entire slate.
Okay. And you're not usually a guy who likes the chalk at tight end. So this is an exception for you.
Yeah, this is a rule that I always violate, and it always burns me, is like never go too heavy on a tight end. It's just too high variant, volatile. But he looks awesome. Since Brissett took over, I remember like we were talking about how Brissett has always targeted tight ends at the league's highest rate, even like dating back to college. He just like laser focused on the tight end. But so since Jacoby Brissett took over, McBride's averaging 11 targets per game. That's 1.2 more than Puka. 23.1 XFP per game. That's 46% better than Puka. Since week 2, Puka's actually tied with Troy Franklin in XFP per game. And like I said, McBride, 50%, almost 50% better. 23.7 fantasy points per game. That's 1.3 more than Puka. He is 2,400 less than Puka with Marv and Harrison Jr. out. So yeah, don't need me to tell you Trey McBride is an awesome play.
Yeah, that one, it seems pretty obvious. 28% ownership still looks okay there. We have 3 other tight ends projected for double-digit ownership. Oronde Gadsden at 4,600 against Jacksonville, George Kittle at 5,000 against Arizona, and then Kyle Pitts 4,000 against Carolina, all projected for double-digit ownership. Do you think you're going to get to double-digit on, or do you think you would in a 150 set, or would you be playing, overexposed to McBride and underexposed to these 3? How do you feel about this trio?
I definitely like Gadsden the second most. I probably come in over. The math's not going to work out. I want to come in way over on McBride, over on Gadsden, and even to the field on the other guys. But I don't know if the math really.
I mean, you can just fade all the other tight ends, and that would work out.
I mean, the problem is like a lot of those like 3K tight ends are nice. Yeah, Gadsden just like, dude, he is so good at football. He is so sick. What did he have? He had, since his breakout, 68 receiving yards, and then 164 and a touchdown, then 77 and a touchdown in a game that was over at half. And then I think a team high 68 up against a Titans defense. That was an easy win. And then he got knocked out of the last game. Dude is incredible. Shouldn't be 4,600. Kittle, remember we talked about whether or not he was hurt, and then he made that like insane sideline touchdown maneuver, and he looked really healthy on that. He also gets Purdy back, so I think there's good, price adjusted upside. I do think he's volatile. I don't like him as much as Gadsden. Pitts, you have to get over your PTSD with Pitts. He ranks second in target share, second in target share on aimed throws. So if you just take out throwaways and batted passes and whatnot, unbelievably second among all tight ends in target share. And so, decent volume related value. You could fade Pitts and I wouldn't get mad at you. You could have 5% Kittle. I think that's fine. But yeah, McBride and Gadsden.
Todd brings up a good point. He asked, how much do we think the field will have McBride and Gadsden together? And my guess is not much. Like, I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to play running backs in the flex. So we're probably not going to get a lot of 2 tight end options. So that is another viable approach if you really like both McBride and Gadsden, which, like McBride, I mean, McBride he's 19.5 fantasy point projection at 6,300. It's just like he's clearly underpriced regardless of what position he is. So yeah, I think that is viable. You said that you like some of these cheaper tight ends also. Who are some of your favorites?
Chris really likes Theo. I can't say I agree too strongly with it. I have to pull up the list because, like, honestly, there's a ton of them. And so, shout out to the MME bros out there. I think the single entry guys are really just going to tune me out. All right. So Pat Fryermuth and Jonnu Smith are in play just because, like, just go to schedule adjusted, Neil. Like,
Yep.
Just look at it.
For the year, for the last 5.
I've never, let's go to year.
Okay.
I've never seen it that high for tight ends. I don't remember the last time
that's insane.
Crazy. This is like the worst defense against tight ends ever. And like last year, Cincinnati's defense was up there. By the way, Trey McBride plays the Bengals in week 17.
Yeah, that could be wheels all the way up.
That's scary. Like if you're in a season long league or if you don't have a ton of McBride advancing in underdog, that is so scary. But yeah, Pat Fryermuth, Jonnu Smith basically cost nothing. It's a best possible matchup. Fryermuth went crazy against this same defense. It's a bad matchup for DK Metcalf, who's going to get shadowed by one of the best shadow cornerbacks in the league this year, DJ Turner. Do we really Calvin Austin? Are we really worried about Calvin? I don't know. And so Pat Fryermuth, I think, shouldn't be going under 5% owned. He is. That's a good, swing for the fences tight end pick that doesn't really hurt you at that price. Dalton Schultz, 3,900. Really good volume, really good production in recent weeks. Had a career high 11 targets with David Mills last week. Mark Andrews, he scores touchdowns. Lamar Jackson always looks to him inside the end zone. He's a lot better than his 3,500 price tag. Can you just go back over to projections? I don't know that any of these guys have a great matchup. He's just a lot better than 3,500. Cade Otton, another guy who he's the number 2 receiver on this Baker Mayfield offense. And Baker is such a G that, it doesn't matter who your number 2 is. If you're Baker's number 2, you're going to be productive. Since week 5, 64 yards per game, with a 22.9% target share since week 6. Not a great matchup. There's cheaper tight ends, but he's in play. And then Luke Musgrave, he's going to be a bell cow tight end. And the route share is going to be there. So all those guys, if you're an MME bro, I don't think you need, any other tight ends in your pool.
I like it. Last week you made me talk about defenses.
Yeah, I'm going to do it again.
All right. Houston.
Let's hear it, Neil. Let's hear a defense expert.
I mean, I took the Texans defense in the cage match. I think that they're pretty good chalk against Tennessee. Tennessee is just really bad, and the Texans defense really, really good. So even at 3,700, I think Texans defense looks good. Packers defense, though, only getting 6% ownership. Was not expecting that low of ownership on really good defense going up against Jameis Winston. I mean, come on, we got to go Packers defense, right?
Do you know how much money like that? I complain about how like every single week, like my defense scores negative points. And if I had any of the top 5 highest scoring defenses, I would have shipped something, which I'm sure isn't true. It's just your cognitive bias.
Right.
But opposing defense versus Jameis Winston has made me so much money over the years, which that was always my exception. Pay up for that. That's a great call.
Yeah. So we can pay up for the Texans. We can pay up for the Packers. Steven brought up the Chiefs defense against Bo Nix. I don't hate that at 3,100, 3% ownership. Do we have any like salary? I mean, Tennessee pops as a value at 2,300, but they're getting a lot of ownership. I'm trying to see if the Chargers getting some ownership. Let me just sort by salary here. See if there are any like at the low end that we kind of like. Where is Pittsburgh? I mean, we've talked about like, okay, they're also expensive.
Ooh,
so never mind.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Carolina, I kind of like at 2,700, just like attack Michael Penix. They scored, I think, 1 or 2 defensive touchdowns the last time they played against Atlanta. Not that that's worth anything, but like I think they're a pretty good defense, and they're playing against Michael Penix, who's really like off and on, pretty inconsistent. So I think they kind of stand out as a strong, more value option.
It's going to be tough to get away from the Titans.
Yeah, to get away from
Stone
the
minimum
offense.
against Davis Mills.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. That does seem.
Oof.
But it's chalky. It is chalky. I also think, I mean, you and I gave kind of the bull case for JJ McCarthy at the beginning of the show, but also like he's very inconsistent. He's been throwing up a lot of interception worthy balls, and Bears defense is 2,800, only project for 5% ownership. Hate to say it, but I think that's a really strong play also.
I'm with you.
Anything else? I mean, Vikings 3,000 against Caleb looks okay. Yeah. I think that's it. I think those are the ones that stand out.
I think you killed it.
Nice. Let's build some lineups.
Oh boy, Neil.
Yeah. All right. So everything starts with the defense, of course, as we've established. I'm kidding. We can start with one of our favorite stacks. Where do you want to start?
Bo Nix, Marvin Mims, Rashee Rice. What we talked about all show. Our favorite stack.
Yeah. No. You don't actually want to do that.
You know, there's people who don't watch the show and they just
they're just gonna
lineups and then just write the names down.
Yeah, that's true. We did talk about liking the chalk with JJ McCarthy and or Jacoby Brissett. We talked about Justin Herbert as a quarterback that we like. What do you think?
Let's do Brissett.
All right. I think we just.
I haven't built a single lineup this week, so I don't know where we're going.
Yeah, McBride pretty easy.
Pearsall or McCaffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pearsall makes sense in this lineup. We could do both Pearsall and McCaffrey, but because Brissett and McBride are the chalk at their positions, like throwing in the 1% on Pearsall really helps.
Yeah.
Do you want to go McCaffrey also? We can afford it probably.
Yeah. Let's see if we can.
Dowdle. We could also put in Imari DiMercato if you want to go with your Galaxy brain.
Yeah. I think we should go. I think we need to double Brissett. So it's either DiMercato or one of those wide receivers, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's try to find some value. So you really like
value right there.
I mean, yeah, we could. That's any of those is pretty good value. We could also throw Christian Watson in here if we want to go a different route for value. Yeah, if we go like Christian Watson and Michael Wilson, suddenly we're probably able to spend up.
Let's just try and make this. Let's do Titans defense just to give us a sense of what we have, and then you can pick between Warren and Chase Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for running backs against the Bengals, so I'll do Warren in there.
That works for me. All right, so let's do Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch.
Let's I feel like Michael Wilson benefits more from Marvin Harrison being out, but Dortch appears to be your guy.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly one. It doesn't really matter to me.
Well, let's see if the $500 difference does anything for us.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Okay. Yeah, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf. So then it would be 5,400 if we want to get to.
Oh, we just missed out on Addison. But we can move up to a different defense. Well, there's Shakir and Juan. There's Shakir, who's Chris's conviction play of the week.
Okay,
I'm going to do that. Move up to Michael Wilson and see. Yeah, I guess our defense probably doesn't change though.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. That's an interesting onslaught.
Yeah, we got the Jacoby double with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, bringbacks of Christian McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall. Then we've got a Dowdle one-off, Khalil Shakir one-off, Jalen Warren one-off, and Titans defense. Looks good. Looks like it's strong.
I'm probably not going to wind up with much CMC outside of Purdy Brissett lineups, I think.
The tough thing is that there's just so much good value at running back.
Yeah.
So it's like he has to beat out.
There's pay up wide receivers who could put the slate out of reach.
Yeah.
I mean, so can CMC, of course, but
yeah,
wide receiver is trickier than running back, and which is a huge feather in the cap for the expensive wide receivers.
right. Do we want to try building out a lineup with that game stack of Seattle, Los Angeles? Like put in JSN and Puka Nacua, one of those quarterbacks.
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Sam Darnold, I suppose.
Yeah. Shaheed.
Oh, yeah. Do we even talk about Shaheed?
No. The argument is just like, this is what Ryan, Heath, and I have talked about in the Everything Report is like, there's so much upside to this Seattle number 2 role if Cooper Kupp wasn't fully cooked, just because these condensed sets, these horizontal routes are so valuable for fantasy, and Kupp hasn't been able to take advantage. Shaheed had a 60% route share in a game that was like never competitive. I don't know that it's going to get much higher than that because Kupp is such a good blocker. The way like announcers talk about him and like the coaching staff talks about him is like he's the Trent Williams of wide receivers. But Shaheed does know the Clint Kubiak offense, had success in the Clint Kubiak offense. And he's just like I think is one of the most underrated players in the league. So yeah, I think he's interesting.
I like it. I think that's a good call. So now I put in the Titans defense just to see where we're at. That brings us to 48.75 left for pick. So we're probably not going to get McBride in there. Probably need to go with a value tight end. But I mean, we could get Gadsden in there probably.
Yeah.
As long as we go with a relatively cheap flex. So if we go with, man, who are our favorite value plays? Let's see. Do we like anybody cheaper than Christian Watson?
Not really.
Because Christian Watson, like we're going to be hurting a little bit at running back. I think if we go, well, let's see what we can do as far as. I mean, we could put DeMarcado in here, I guess.
Yeah.
This would be a lineup where that might make sense.
Or Dortch or Michael Wilson if we really wanted to.
Yeah. So if we put in, I guess let's try Dortch in the flex. Then we have 5,800 left per running back pick. In which case, then we could go with Vidal and Chase Brown.
For sure. Let's do. Aaron Jones, Woody Marks, Harvey.
I don't think I asked you about Kamani Vidal. Are you not a Kamani Vidal guy this week?
Jaguars is the biggest pass funnel in the league, so I just don't like that spot for him.
All right. So, do we want to pay down for a Woody Marks, Aaron Jones?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do Woody Marks, and then we can swap Titans defense up to Chargers or Bears.
Let's do Chargers.
There you go. Sam Darnold double stack with JSN and Shaheed with a Puka Nacua bring back. We've got Chase Brown, Woody Marks, Orande Gadsden. I was going to call him Omarion. Orande Gadsden, Greg Dortch, and the Chargers defense uses the full salary cap. Beauty. All right. Are we good? Do you want to make one more?
No, I think we're good. I think this is a tough week, actually. I feel like it was easier to build last week.
Yeah, it is kind of tough, but I think we made some nice lineups. So feeling pretty good about it. Before we get out of here, Scott, do you have anything else coming up? Anything you want to shout out before we get out?
This UFC card is awesome. Can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, check out.
I don't even know who's going to win, but rooting for JDM. So
nice.
Shout out to that.
All right. Shout out the UFC card. Check out Fantasy Points. Use OTP 15 to get 15% off on any package. There are already reduced prices. And of course, that'll get you into the Fantasy Points Discord as well, with a lot of sharp conversations going in there. I'll have my Sunday Night Football article out tomorrow at Fantasy Points. But I think that is going to do it for the show. We'll be back next week doing the show once again on Saturday. So hopefully you will join us again. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, let us know if you have success this week. We always love to see it, see those big wins with advice that you take from Fantasy Points. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.